Your child talks back. Not dramatically, not aggressively, just enough to trigger something inside you. A tone, a pause, a look. And suddenly, your body reacts before your mind does. Your chest tightens. Your voice sharpens. Your authority feels challenged. "Don't talk to me like that!" In that moment, something important happens. Not in your child's behavior, in their brain. And almost no one explains this part to parents. Because disrespect is not taught through rules. It is taught through emotional modeling. Stay with me. Because once you understand how respect is actually learned, you will stop fighting your child and start shaping behavior in a way that lasts. This is not about being softer. It is about being more effective. Let us start with a truth that feels uncomfortable. Children do not learn respect from what parents say. They learn respect from how parents behave under pressure, especially when parents are frustrated, especially when parents feel challenged, especially when parents feel tired, rushed, or overwhelmed. Human brains are designed to mirror. This is not philosophy. This is neuroscience. Mirror neurons activate when we observe another person's emotional state. They copy tone, facial tension, body posture, energy. They do not copy values. They copy regulation. So when a parent responds to perceived disrespect with emotional escalation, even briefly, even mildly, the child's brain records something very specific. This is how power sounds when it is frustrated. Not respect matters, not boundaries are important, but a template for how authority expresses stress. And children reuse that template with siblings, with teachers, eventually back toward you. This is why so many parents feel trapped in a cycle they never intended to create. They demand respect. They receive resistance. They escalate. The child mirrors. The conflict grows. From the outside, it looks like a discipline problem. From the inside, it is a regulation problem. And regulation always precedes behavior. Now let us talk about why this happens so often in intelligent, educated households. Because smart people value efficiency. They value directness. They value results. So when a child shows disrespect, the instinct is to correct it quickly, shut it down, reassert authority, move on. But emotional systems do not respond to efficiency. They respond to coherence. And coherence means alignment between words, tone, and emotional state. You cannot demand calm while modeling tension. You cannot demand respect while modeling sharpness. Children notice the mismatch instantly. Not consciously, physiologically. Their nervous system detects inconsistency, and inconsistency creates resistance. Now consider a common moment. You ask your child to do something reasonable. They sigh, they mutter, they roll their eyes. You feel disrespected. Your response sharpens. Watch your tone. From your perspective, you are enforcing a boundary. From your child's nervous system, something else is happening. Their amygdala activates. This is the brain's threat detection system. Once activated, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. Reasoning shuts down. learning stops. The child is no longer processing values. They are defending status. And status defense looks like talking back, arguing, defiance. This is why saying, "they know better," misses the point. Knowing is not the problem. Regulation is. Now let us be very clear. This does not mean children should be allowed to speak disrespectfully. Boundaries matter. Authority matters. But how authority is expressed determines whether respect is internalized or resisted. Respect enforced through fear produces compliance. Respect modeled through regulation produces character. Compliance disappears when pressure is removed. Character remains. This distinction matters enormously later in life. Now let us dismantle a dangerous myth. The myth is that calm authority equals weakness. It does not. Calm authority is the strongest form of authority humans recognize. It signals safety. It signals confidence. It signals control without domination. Children do not trust loud authority. They test it. They push against it. They mirror it. Children trust calm authority because calm authority feels stable, and stability allows learning. Now, here is where many parents misunderstand modeling. They believe modeling respect means never showing emotion. That is impossible and unnecessary. Modeling respect means showing emotion without losing control. It means saying no without humiliation. It means holding boundaries without sarcasm. It means correcting behavior without attacking identity. This is what authoritative parenting actually looks like. High warmth, high structure, not permissive, not authoritarian. And decades of research show the same outcome again and again. Children raised in this environment demonstrate better emotional regulation, higher self-esteem, stronger long-term outcomes, lower aggression. Not because they were indulged, but because they were regulated with. Now let us talk about power struggles. Power struggles only exist when respect is tied to dominance. When children feel that respect means submission, they resist. When children feel that respect means dignity with boundaries, they cooperate. This does not eliminate testing. Children test. It is how they learn. But the intensity of testing decreases when authority is predictable and calm. Now let us introduce the first critical shift. Pause. One breath before responding. This is not a mindfulness cliché. It is a neurological intervention. It takes several seconds for the prefrontal cortex to regain control after emotional activation. That single breath changes who is leading the interaction. Without it, you react. With it, you model leadership. Step 2 is naming emotion without validating behavior. I hear that you're frustrated. Pause. That tone is not okay. This does two things simultaneously. It validates internal experience. It limits external expression. Children who learn this distinction develop far better self-control over time. They learn that emotions are allowed. Disrespect is not. Now, step 3. Deliver the boundary calmly. No lecture, no threat, no escalation. You need to speak respectfully or this conversation stops. Simple, clear, firm. And then follow through. Calmly. No emotion, no humiliation. This is authority that does not need volume. Now step 4. Repair. This is where most parents miss the deepest leverage. When you lose your cool, go back. I raised my voice earlier. That wasn't okay. I was frustrated, but that's not how I want to speak to you. This models accountability, and accountability is the backbone of respect. Children who see adults own mistakes internalize responsibility. They learn that power does not excuse poor behavior. This lesson is priceless. Now, address the fear directly. If I stop demanding respect, won't my child walk all over me? No, they will stop fighting for power, because the fight was never about chores. It was about emotional control. Now zoom out. The number one mistake that teaches children to be disrespectful is not lack of discipline. It is demanding respect instead of demonstrating it. Once you see this, discipline stops being a battle. It becomes modeling, and modeling compounds. Every interaction becomes a deposit, not into obedience, into character. Once you understand that respect is learned through modeling, not enforcement, a much larger picture begins to emerge. This pattern does not stop at childhood. It scales into adolescence, into adulthood, into leadership, relationships, and professional life. Because respect is not a behavior, it is a relational skill. And relational skills compound over time. In every high-performing system, from successful companies to resilient families, authority functions best when it is predictable, regulated, and fair. Not when it is loud, not when it is reactive, not when it relies on fear. This is why emotionally regulated leaders outperform dominant ones in the long run. And parenting is the first leadership environment any human experiences. Now let us talk about why demanding respect feels so tempting in the moment. Because it gives the illusion of control. When a parent raises their voice, tightens their posture, and asserts dominance, behavior often stops immediately. Silence follows. Compliance appears. And the nervous system relaxes. But this relief is deceptive, because what actually happened is not learning, it is suppression. The child's nervous system did not integrate a value, it adapted to a threat. Threat-based compliance disappears the moment the threat is removed. This is why children who appear respectful around certain adults behave very differently when those adults are not present. They learned avoidance, not respect. Now let us examine what happens internally when respect is modeled instead of demanded. When a parent remains calm while enforcing a boundary, the child's nervous system does not enter survival mode. The prefrontal cortex remains online. This allows integration. The child can feel frustration and still process limits. Over time, this builds an internal capacity that becomes self-regulation. Self-regulation is the foundation of mature behavior. It is what allows a person to pause before reacting, to think before speaking, to disagree without escalating. This is not taught through lectures. It is absorbed through experience. Now let us address the role of consistency. Consistency is often misunderstood as rigidity. In reality, consistency is emotional predictability. Children need to know not just what the rules are, but how those rules will be delivered. If boundaries are enforced calmly one day and explosively the next, the system becomes unstable. Instability breeds testing. Testing escalates conflict. This is why calm authority must be repeatable. Not perfect, repeatable. Now consider the long-term effects of growing up in an emotionally regulated environment. Children raised in such environments develop a stronger internal locus of control. They believe their actions matter. They do not feel constantly under threat. They are less defensive. This makes them more open to feedback, more willing to learn, more capable of navigating complex social systems. These traits show up later in school. Teachers often describe these children as easy to work with, not because they are passive, but because they can tolerate correction without humiliation. Now let us connect this to future success. In modern professional environments, technical skill is rarely enough. The people who advance are those who can manage emotion under pressure, who can receive criticism without collapsing, who can hold authority without abusing it. These capacities are not developed in seminars. They are built early, at home, through thousands of small interactions. Now let us talk about repair again, because its importance cannot be overstated. Repair is the act of restoring connection after rupture. Rupture is inevitable. Parents are human. They get tired. They get stressed. They lose patience. What matters is not the rupture. It is the repair. When a parent returns and says, "I shouldn't have spoken to you that way," they do something powerful. They normalize accountability. They teach that respect is not about perfection. It is about responsibility. Children who experience consistent repair develop stronger emotional resilience. They are less likely to catastrophize mistakes. They learn that relationships can survive conflict. This lesson alone prevents countless future relational failures. Now let us talk about why repair feels difficult for many parents. Because it threatens identity. Parents fear losing authority. They worry that apologizing undermines respect. But the opposite is true. Apology strengthens authority when it is paired with consistent boundaries. It demonstrates integrity. Children trust leaders who own mistakes. They distrust leaders who deny them. This is true in families. It is true in organizations. It is true everywhere humans interact. Now let us address the fear that calm authority will be ignored. Many parents worry that if they stop escalating, children will escalate instead. Sometimes, behavior worsens briefly. This is known as an extinction burst. The child tests whether the new pattern is real. If the parent remains calm and consistent, the testing stops. If the parent escalates, the old pattern is reinforced. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Now let us look at respect from another angle. Respect is closely tied to dignity. When children feel humiliated, they defend. When they feel dignified, they cooperate. Dignity does not mean permissiveness. It means correction without contempt. "You need to change this behavior" is very different from "there is something wrong with you." Children hear the difference instantly, and they respond accordingly. Now consider the internal dialogue a child develops. In a regulated environment, the internal voice sounds like, "I can handle this. I made a mistake, but I can fix it. I am safe, even when I am frustrated." In a dysregulated environment, The internal voice sounds like, I need to protect myself. I will be punished if I fail. I have to fight or shut down. These internal narratives guide behavior for decades. Now let us connect this back to respect. Children who feel internally safe do not need to assert power through disrespect. They do not need to challenge authority constantly. They already feel valued. This reduces the need for defiance. Now pause. If this feels like a shift from traditional discipline thinking, that is because it is. Traditional discipline focuses on behavior. This approach focuses on systems. And systems thinking is what produces durable outcomes. Now let us look at the broader cultural context. American culture often equates authority with dominance, loudness with confidence, control with leadership. But the most effective leaders operate differently. They regulate, they model, they repair. Parenting that teaches respect through regulation prepares children for the real world. Not a world of submission, but a world of cooperation, boundaries, and mutual respect. Now consider one more reframe. Instead of asking, how do I stop my child from being disrespectful? Ask, what am I modeling in moments of frustration? This question shifts responsibility without blame. It creates awareness, and awareness is where change begins. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to demonstrate how power and respect coexist. Not perfectly, but consistently. This is the work, and it is slow. But it compounds, quietly, relentlessly. Respect is not just a family value. It is an economic asset. The ability to regulate emotion, communicate under pressure, and navigate authority without escalation determines outcomes in education, careers, and leadership far more reliably than raw intelligence. This is where the long-term consequences of early emotional modeling become impossible to ignore. Because the patterns learned at home do not disappear, they scale. A child who learns that authority is unpredictable becomes hypervigilant. They spend cognitive energy monitoring emotional shifts instead of learning. A child who learns that authority is calm and consistent spends that same energy exploring, thinking, and creating. This difference compounds over years, over decades. In school, teachers quickly notice which students can accept correction without humiliation. These students do not shut down when challenged. They do not escalate when frustrated. They ask questions. They adjust. They improve. This is not because they are more obedient. It is because they are more regulated. Regulation allows access to higher cognition, and higher cognition drives performance. Now let us move forward in time, into adolescence. This is where many parents believe respect is lost. Teenagers push boundaries. They challenge authority. They test independence. This is normal. But the intensity of this phase depends heavily on the foundation built earlier. Adolescents who grew up with regulated authority do not stop disagreeing. They stop fighting. They express opposition without contempt. They negotiate instead of explode. They are not easier, they are clearer. Because they learned early that disagreement does not threaten connection. Now consider adolescence in a different environment. One where authority was loud, inconsistent, or humiliating. These teenagers often fall into two patterns: open rebellion or silent withdrawal. Both are responses to perceived threat. Neither reflects internalized respect. Now let us connect this to adulthood. In professional environments, respect is currency. The people who rise are not those who dominate meetings. They are the ones who can hold tension without discharging it. They deliver feedback without humiliation. They receive criticism without defensiveness. They regulate. These individuals are trusted. Trust leads to opportunity. Opportunity leads to leverage. This is how respect converts into economic value. Now think about conflict. Conflict is inevitable in families, in teams, in partnerships. The question is not whether conflict occurs, it is how it is handled. People who learned early that conflict equals danger avoided or escalated. People who learned that conflict can be navigated calmly engage it productively. This difference determines relationship stability, career longevity, and leadership potential. Now return to the core mechanism. Children do not learn respect from rules. They learn respect from repeated exposure to regulated authority. This exposure teaches the nervous system what to expect. Predictability creates safety. Safety allows regulation. Regulation enables learning. Learning enables competence. Competence builds confidence. Confidence reduces the need for power struggles. This is the chain, and it is built early. Now let us address something subtle. Many parents believe respect must be established early or it will be lost. The opposite is true. Respect must be modeled early or it will never internalize. You can force behavior at any age. You cannot force internal values. Internal values are absorbed. Now consider money. In investing, you cannot force returns. You create conditions, diversification, time horizon, risk management. Parenting works the same way. You cannot force respect. You create an environment where it grows. This is why demanding respect feels productive in the short term and destructive in the long term. It prioritizes immediate control over system health. Now let us talk about ego. Ego is often the hidden driver in respect struggles. When parents feel disrespected, they feel personally diminished. This triggers defense. Defense triggers escalation. Escalation triggers mirroring, and the cycle continues. Breaking this cycle requires separating ego from leadership. Leadership does not require being liked, but it does require being regulated. The moment a parent takes a child's tone personally, leadership is compromised. Because leadership is about outcomes, not emotional validation. This is difficult, especially for caring parents, but it is necessary. Now let us introduce a powerful reframe. Respect is not something your child owes you. It is something they learn from you. This does not mean children are equals. It means they are learners, and you are the model. Now think about the moments when this is hardest. When you are tired, when you are late, when you feel judged. Those moments carry disproportionate weight. Because stress reveals patterns. Children remember how power behaves under pressure. This is why regulation under stress is the most powerful teaching tool you have. Now consider one more dimension: self-respect. Children who grow up being spoken to with dignity develop internal dignity. They do not need to assert worth through defiance. They do not need to challenge authority to feel powerful. They already feel powerful internally. This internal power translates into calm confidence. And calm confidence is magnetic. It attracts opportunity. It invites trust. Now pause. If you feel the gravity of this, that is appropriate. But do not confuse gravity with pressure. This is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. Patterns matter more than moments. Consistency matters more than intensity. Now let us address repair one final time from a long-term perspective. Repair teaches children that relationships can survive mistakes. This belief changes everything. It allows them to take risks, to be honest, to engage fully. Adults who never learned repair either avoid conflict or destroy relationships through it. Adults who learned repair navigate complexity. This is one of the most valuable skills a human can possess, and it is taught early. Now return to the original problem: the child talking back, the tone, the frustration. Seen through this lens, that moment is not a threat. It is an opportunity. An opportunity to model how authority responds to challenge. An opportunity to demonstrate regulation. An opportunity to teach respect without saying the word. This is why the solution to disrespect is not punishment. It is presence. Not permissive presence. Regulated presence. Now let us look ahead to the end. Because understanding without integration changes nothing. Integration happens through practice, through repetition, through choosing leadership over reaction, again and again. This is slow, but it compounds, quietly, and the returns are enormous. There is a quiet shift that happens when parents stop trying to control behavior and start shaping systems. When they stop asking how to win the moment and start asking how to build the future. Because respect is not a reaction. It is an outcome of repeated exposure to calm authority, emotional regulation, and dignity under pressure. By the time disrespect becomes visible, the lesson has already been taught, not through rules, through modeling. This is why the most effective parents are not the most forceful ones. They are the most regulated. They do not confuse authority with dominance. They do not confuse volume with power. They understand that children are not resisting rules, they are responding to energy. Now return to the everyday moments. The request that is ignored. The tone that feels sharp. The pushback that triggers your nervous system. These moments feel small, but they are not. They are training sessions. Each one teaches your child something about how power works, how conflict is handled, how dignity is preserved or lost. And children do not forget these lessons. They integrate them. This is why respect taught through fear never lasts. Fear creates compliance. But compliance collapses the moment fear disappears. Respect, taught through regulation, becomes internal. It travels with the child into classrooms, workplaces, and relationships. Now let us talk about the internal work parents must do. Because this approach requires something uncomfortable. It requires separating ego from leadership. When a parent feels disrespected, the instinct is to defend status, to reassert power, to restore control. But leadership is not about defending status. It is about maintaining direction. The moment you take your child's behavior personally, leadership slips into reaction. And reaction never produces the outcome you want. Leadership produces outcomes. Reaction produces cycles. Breaking cycles requires awareness, and awareness creates choice. Now consider the choice available in every moment of conflict. You can escalate, or you can regulate. Escalation feels satisfying in the short term. Regulation feels harder. But regulation compounds. Over time, regulated authority reshapes the entire emotional climate of a family. Conflict becomes less explosive. Boundaries become clearer. Children test less aggressively, not because they are afraid, but because the system feels stable. Stability reduces resistance. Now let us address something important. This approach does not eliminate consequences. It changes how they are delivered. You chose not to listen, so screen time is done today. We'll try again tomorrow. Calm, firm, complete. No lectures, no humiliation, no emotional discharge. This is authority that does not need performance. It works because it is consistent, and consistency is what nervous systems trust. Now let us be honest. You will fail at this sometimes. You will raise your voice. You will sound sharper than you intended. You will regret it. This does not erase the work. What matters is what happens next. Pair. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. I was frustrated, but that's not how I want to treat you. This single sentence teaches accountability, humility, and respect more effectively than any punishment ever could. Children raised with repair do not fear mistakes. They learn from them. They learn that power does not excuse poor behavior. They learn that relationships can survive conflict. This belief alone changes the trajectory of a life. Now pause for a moment. If this video has shifted how you think about respect, discipline, or authority, subscribe to this channel. Not for algorithms, but because these conversations are rare and they matter. And if there is one person in your life, a partner, a friend, a sibling, someone you genuinely care about and want to grow alongside, share this video with them. Not to criticize, not to correct, but to support. Because parenting, like leadership, is not meant to be done alone. And clarity is something we can give each other. Now let us bring this home. The number one mistake that teaches children to be disrespectful is not lack of discipline. It is demanding respect instead of demonstrating it. The solution is not permissiveness, it is regulated authority. Calm, consistent, accountable. When children experience this repeatedly, respect stops being something they resist. It becomes something they internalize. Something that shapes how they treat others. Something that guides how they handle power. You are not just correcting behavior, you are shaping a nervous system. You are teaching a human how authority, dignity, and self-control coexist. This work is slow. It is often invisible, but it is permanent, and it begins in the smallest moments. With a breath, with a pause, with a decision to lead instead of react. Respect is not taught forward, it is taught downward, through example. And once you understand that, parenting stops being a battle for control. It becomes the deliberate construction of character. And that is a return on investment that compounds for a lifetime.